to launching the high-level political and security dialogue, and becoming the second biggest beneficiary of European Union assistance from the European Peace Facility, designated to help to modernize our armed forces. Next, to launch the European Union Partnership Mission in Moldova to support to fight against hybrid threats. And just a week ago, the cooperation was raised to a new strategical level by signing the first Moldova-European Union Security and Defence Partnership that now offers the platform for deeper and more structured cooperation, including new policy areas and initiatives such as those related to defence industry and joint procurement. In conclusion, the Republic of Moldova reaffirmed its dedication to building joint collective resilience as a fundamental commitment to our global security. We stand ready to contribute actively to partnership that strengthen our ability to prepare for and respond to the emerging threats. As we deliberate on how to deliver peace, security and defense, it is clear that, and I will reiterate, that no single nation can address those complex challenges alone. Our commitment to a rule-based international order, human rights and cooperation underscore the needs for the collective approach to the security.
Thank you very much, Minister Nosati. I'm going to give the floor to all of our ministers to hear from them first, but beware, I will be opening the floor to you, so please do get thinking about your comments or interventions you'd like to make on these topics. And of course, if you're joining from home, you can also join the discussion online with the hashtag Schuman Forum. I'd like to hand over now to Minister Ollongren. We were talking just before this panel that we met actually a couple of years ago on a happy occasion celebrating the work of veterans. But the fact is, many of such occasions, and I think all of your work as defence ministers, are not that happy. The security environment is deteriorating, I think, in many of your eyes. The EU has been undergoing really a paradigm shift, trying to step up in terms of responsibility for defence. How do you think that's going? What's your assessment, Minister?
Sorry, is this one? Yes. Thank you and good morning. And absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. And I think that the High Rep also marked exactly that. The security environment in the world has deteriorated rapidly. And I'm afraid also that's not going to change very soon. And it has been for the European Union, for many European countries, a wake-up call. The question is, what was exactly the wake-up call? Maybe it was the invasion of Ukraine only a little bit more than 2 years ago. But there have been many wake-up calls, I think, for us, also in the Sahel region, in Africa, also in the Indo-Pacific regions. So the security environment is really threatening to us. And that's why we need these partnerships and the perspective from countries around the world and also to have the dialogue with countries around the world to look at their perspective and at our perspective and see how we can match them. Because I think that many of these security threats are interlinked. And what we are facing now in Europe with the war in Ukraine, with Putin and the Kremlin, they present an existential threat to us here in Europe. But we must be aware of the fact that that is linked with many other places in the world. I think about the Middle East. I think about Africa. And it's very concrete, these threats. There is a presence of Russia controlled by the Kremlin in several countries in the world. Countries are being armed by Russia. They use not only weapons, but they weaponize food or migration. So that is a threat that we are facing, all of us, and that is why we reach out to those countries that could benefit from the partnership with us, and vice versa. We could benefit from the partnership with you, because many of those countries are present here today. So as long as Putin is in charge in Russia, it presents a threat in many ways, and it was rightly mentioned. These are military threats, but there is also cyber, hybrid propaganda and disinformation. And if you look at many of our partners, look at Ukraine is dealing with all of that. Moldova, I visited your country, and you are dealing with a very complex situation, being also a relatively small country with Russian presence in your country, with cyber and hybrid threats and disinformation. But also we also follow very closely, of course, what's happening in Georgia. And if you look at our own European Union, and we talk to the Baltic states, who know, because they've been under the control of Moscow until they got their independence back in the 90s, that they have never stopped considering Russia as a potential existential threat, and they were right, and we should listen to them. And I think the same goes for Africa, where also economic coercion is used in many countries, and you are dealing with other threats like terrorism, and also there we have to cooperate. So there are many things that we can do together if we really want to have a secure world based on the rule-based order that should unite many of us, and because that is our common interest to get that back. And then I think there is a lot of room to make your own choices. But territorial integrity is something I think we can all relate to as countries. And if we accept that Russia can simply invade a neighbor country, and we are not standing up against this type of aggression, that opens the door for other regimes in other parts of the world to do the same and to say to us in Europe, well, you didn't do anything, you didn't stand up. What did you do? So that's why we support Ukraine so strongly. That's why we consider this really an existential threat to us here in Europe. But it's also exactly the reason why we must reach out to those partner countries in these other parts of the world, because they also matter to us. The Indo-Pacific matters, and it's not only by words, by saying, as a Minister of Defense, you can do things. As we speak, there is one of the Dutch frigates that is in the Indo-Pacific, and we're going to do that on a regular basis. And Josep Borrell rightly mentioned Aspides. We are present. The European Union is present in the Red Sea because free passage for us is crucial. And that's why we're there. And we're there to protect ships, to make that passage. So partnerships matter, and I'm very much aware that security is not only about military security, it's also about the effects of climate change, it's about maritime security, infrastructure, undersea infrastructure, it's about tackling the root causes of migration. So it's interconnected with not only defense issues, but much wider than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Ollongren. Minister Badarou, we are about just over a year out from the very first Schuman Forum here in Brussels, but it's exactly a year to the day since President Tinubu was inaugurated, and within that year you've also taken office as Defence Minister. Can you give us your assessment of how the security environment has changed over that time and how you're tackling mounting challenges?
Thank you very much. I believe it's been about a year that President Tinubu has taken over. And just now, Vice President Joseph Borrell said there is tremendous improvement in the Gulf of Guinea over the year. So President has been supporting the Gulf of Guinea's Commission, of course with the support of EU, to have those waters being protected. And we inherited a very delicate situation in the northeast of Nigeria, where terrorists as Boko Haram and ISWAP are really killing people, and the insurgency was high. But you will agree with me, it has been curtailed, also through jointness, because the multinational joint task force that is also being supported by the EU has been doing very good job, and as of today we are on an operation called Lake Sanity 2, and we have been degrading the insurgents, and I believe we don't see serious escalation that we expect to have, and we are seeing progress there. But also there is the banditry, insurgency, kidnapping in the northwest and north central part of Nigeria, which is creating untold hardship the people. Again, that has been reduced drastically, but so much needs to be done, and through collaborations and effort. So in total, I can say the situation over the year has been improving, despite the challenge in the Sahel, the change of regime in Niger with attendant consequences that happens there. We are watching closely the Sahel. We are watching closely what is happening in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, where we see escalation of terrorism and insurgency. Really, you will agree with me that the situation there is not improving, and it might have direct effect into Nigeria. So we need to wake up a little bit more, push some more, and rally our partners to support the situation in Nigeria and indeed in the ECOWAS region and also in Africa. The situation in Mali, Togo, and Burkina Faso is also updated with the situation in Libya. A lot of arms and ammunition find their way into Libya and really supported by world powers that are supporting opposing camps. And that has really allowed for the proliferation of arms into both countries, having porous borders that we have. And that is also another issue that needs to be tackled. Situation in Sudan is also not abating. And this is, if you look at all these situations, are really caused by the larger foreign community. Some countries supporting this function against the other function. So where is the global partnership? How do we bring those people on the table and resolve these issues? The same thing in Mali. Different countries supporting different groups to fight. And that is creating serious havoc in the Sahel. So I believe going forward, this question must be asked here. And this solution must be provided here. And it's the same in Niger, in Chad, in Niger, in Burkina Faso and Mali. It is also the struggle for control by the Western powers. Change of alliances that give rooms for this unconstitutional change of governments. And that has to stop. We have seen in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso where they change their traditional allies to new allies. And for a mission we are not clear on today. So the situation in Nigeria is better over the year, but there are underlying challenges that must be handled as quickly as we can at really multilateral level, so that we will have probably peace in Libya, in Sudan, and see how to deal with the unconstitutional change of governments that is frequent in Africa. And then I think the world powers have to sit and stop this fighting for territories or for loyalties or friendship or alliances, and have clear way and allow us to prosper and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. I think it's really important, as you said, to highlight where there are wins, where you are managing to really work on counter-terrorism, for example, but within this really stark contrast in the region. I want to move on to Minister Graham here. We've talked a lot about cooperation at this event so far, and I think there's some news hot off the press actually when it comes to cooperation between Norway and the European Union. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, and first of all, thank you so much, Mr. High Representative, for inviting us and initiating this dialogue. And of course, dialogue is a prerequisite for developing partnerships. So we appreciate this. And let me also start with the headline for this discussion: one theater. And I think that's true. International security is one theater, or at least more and more one theater. Our security is interconnected and interdependent, and as my colleague from Moldova said, what happens in one part of the world will most likely affect other parts of the world as well. And our views and assessment is, of course, influenced by the war in Ukraine. And I'm sure that the Russian invasion of Ukraine is not only a threat to security of allies, EU members or European states, but to the entire rules-based international order. And we shouldn't oversimplify, but we find ourselves in a rivalry over values and worldviews that takes place between democracies and authoritarian regimes. And those regimes find each other as well. So there is a new geopolitical landscape, including both revanchist old powers and new rising superpowers. Nuclear weapons are back, and proliferation is of increasing. And the challenges we face today are, as the High Representative said in his opening remarks, multifaceted, including not only security and defense, but economic competition, energy transition, and climate change as well, and so on. So, I answer your question. How does a country up north, bordering Russia, with a small population, think about defense and security in this world with a lot of concerns? Well, for Norway, the transatlantic link is vital for our security. NATO plays a crucial role in deterrence and collective defense and cannot be replaced. At the same time, we see the European Union developing its roles, supporting Ukraine to the European Peace Facility, sanctions, resilience, whole of society approach, and so on. I think the combined use of EU and NATO instruments are key to countering the challenges we face. And yesterday, together with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I signed a joint declaration on the security and defense partnership between Norway and the European Union with high representatives. And I think this will enable us to enhance dialogue on areas of mutual interests. We already contribute to and benefits from European solidarity and cooperation in defense initiatives, including ramping up production of ammunition, supporting Ukraine, as I mentioned, to the European Peace Facility, strengthening military mobility, making sure that our armed forces keeps their technological edge, and so on. So this partnership agreement, I think, will be a useful framework for taking our cooperation forward on a broad range of security and defense-related matters. And I think it will strengthen the security for all of us, both Norway and the members of the European Union.
Thank you so much, Minister Graham. I think you alluded to a country in the north there. I mean, so much of security is dictated by geography, right? But the fact is that we have different geographies sitting at this table, but you're facing similar challenges, right? There are hybrid threats, and I think I'd like to talk about this idea of trying to remain as a kind of beacon of stability within a very tense regional environment. I think that's something that both Moldova and Nigeria can speak to in terms of an experience. I wonder if you have anything to say on that, Minister Nosati, in terms of the regional security environment. I know you're a military man yourself, so it's not something you think of a lot.
Definitely, situation is very unpredictable at this period of time. And when we speak about Moldova, yes, geography it plays its roles because we are not sharing the same border with Russian Federation like other countries do. So this, just as I mentioned, due to the sacrifice of Ukrainian military personnel and whole society in order to defend the territory, it's a great support for us because currently the military operations are not taking place like they used to do close to our border. So there is no imminent direct military threat for the security of my country. However, the elements associated with having the war at the border, we definitely feel them every day. So this was caused by interference in our airspace, by numerous violations of the missiles and drones. And of course the hybrid war that we already spoke, and definitely in this period of time Moldova is a testing ground for the Russian Federation to exercise whole range of asymmetric warfare. So disinformation, propaganda, cyber attacks, interference in the political affairs, meddling in the election. You find all of them in order to destabilize the situation, including the using of the economical situation and using the elements of the corruption that go to the political party, and now the new elements going directly to the voters in order to win hearts and minds by corrupting the voters. So it's another new element that Russians are trying to impose in our society. And the most important, having the permanent pressure by dividing the society and imposing the fear. Like if you continue with your democratic reforms, you are going to face the same situation like Ukrainian doing right now. And this is very significant because only with strong institutions, with partnerships, it's possible to send a political message that even a small nation with limited defense capacity can stand strong against all those challenges because the partnership and the relations that we have with international organizations, bilateral with our strategic partners, it's a very important to survive this challenging period of time.
Thank you so much. And Minister Badawi, I mean, do you have any lessons to share on this in terms of trying to remain as this situation of relative stability in such a, you painted such a stark picture earlier about the neighbourhood?
Yes, I think what we did, what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did, was to have a whole society approach on managing security. And there is what we call renewed hope agenda. All the sections, independent agencies in the government linked together, achieving one target. So we see the social investment, education and health, linked to what we do in Ministry of Defense. And there is jointness in operations, jointness in solving problems in the country. So I think that helps greatly to first work on the criminals now. At the same time, reduce the number of recruitment by providing more situation for people to live a little bit nicely. Improvement in their education, healthcare, massive infrastructural development that is going on, all to help rebomb the economy so that the citizens can be happy and cannot be used or recruited for further violence. Well, we handle what is happening, the situation right now. This, I believe, helps greatly. And again, he invested heavily in equipments for surveillance, firepower to deal with the radicals that are there. In a very short time, we have really terminated a lot of super high-profile insurgents and bandits, and in a very short time, and this will continue. Again, we were very vigilant around our borders so that escalation in the neighboring countries didn't get to us. Like I've said, already the insurgents have been attacking the borders of Togo and Benin, and that is really a bad sign when they get to the shore. So the ECOWAS is working very, very hard, and I'm sure with the support of the EU, to develop the ECOWAS standby force that will help to prevent the escalation around those areas that are pretty safe now. We will continue to make sure we man our borders correctly so that we don't see massive infiltration of bandits, because really the situation is gloomy in both Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, and that have the capacity of moving forward. They have started already moving, like I said, to Lome and Benin. So we need a lot of support, a lot of partnership, intelligence sharing to be able to resolve this and to be able to see, maybe through international diplomacy, how we can find a way to work with these three countries to really reduce the insurgency that is happening there. Of course, they choose new partners. Only diplomacy will probably really help to see, because I really don't have serious confidence that the new partners will be able to solve this crisis in a very, very short time. So there must be some international diplomacy to see how we can resolve this matter, because nobody really understands what is going out there. Nobody really understands why they change. What are they planning to do to reduce the insurgency that is happening there? We only see it increasing. So we'll continue to man Nigerian borders. We'll continue to support our allies around ECOWAS and see how best to reduce the infiltration into the country.
Thank you so much. And you talked there a lot about the importance of diplomacy. And of course, with multilateralism so fragile, fractured, dialogue at these kind of events becomes even more important. At this end of the table, we talked a bit about Ukraine so far. I know that it's defining factor in both of your country's defence policies. Minister Ollongren, you made an announcement this week about support to Ukraine. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yes, absolutely. For us, supporting Ukraine is crucial. It's also crucial because we have to show the world that if we stand up, we take it seriously, and we will continue to do so. And we will continue to support Ukraine with whatever they need, because the Russian war and the attacks of Ukraine are only increasing. The air attacks, for instance, are massive. Ukrainian energy infrastructures is targeted. But not only that, all civilian targets, people are dying in Ukraine because of these air attacks, and Russia is using everything they have, from drones to ballistic missiles. So Ukraine is in dire need of air defense. And we have to learn, all of us, also from this war. Air defense is crucial. And that's why we have taken a step forward, and that my country has said, we know it's a scarce capability, but the Patriot system is very effective against these dangerous air attacks, and especially the missiles. So we will provide core components of a Patriot system, and we invite partners to join us. And that way we can assemble from our side at least one extra Patriot system. And we hope if others join in, also from outside the European Union, outside NATO, we will be able to provide Ukraine with more air defense, which in need, they save lives. So that's absolutely vital. But we do this knowing that what happens in Ukraine will also define the rest of the world. It will define, of course, Europe. Are we able, from being an economic power in the world, also to being a security power in the world? And will we be able to focus not only on the war in Ukraine because it's relatively close, but to have this 360-degree approach to the world as one theater, as was rightly said. And there is where you come back to the partnerships. So partnerships are vital in a geopolitical sense, but they can also be very practical partnerships, as the Patriots show.
Yeah, and in terms of practicality, Minister Grab, I mean, what does this partnership with the European Union, what does it entail for Norway's support for Ukraine?
Exactly. I think in a broad sense, the whole effort in supporting Ukraine is about cooperation and, at least to a certain degree, also about partnerships. And because we have mechanism for coordinating our support, for making the logistics work and so on, a lot of UDCG, SAGU, and so a lot of forums for doing this. But also when it comes to our concrete support, so much is happening with others. When I look at the military support from my country, from Norway, I think we couldn't have done this alone. Even what we are contributing to, so a lot is happening in cooperation with others. For instance, we have, I will say, quite a huge training mission ongoing for Ukraine, training Ukrainian soldiers. We train some of them in Norway, but our two largest efforts are in Interflex in United Kingdom and EU-MAM in Brandenburg, Germany. There we have our instructors cooperating with others, or taking artillery grenades, 155 millimeters, have been a decision. We take some from our own stocks, okay, that we can do. But when we was going to expand production capacity, well, we had an initiative with Sweden and Denmark, and together and with industry we can produce more. And actually, a grenade, no, it's very technical, but a grenade is, you would think it's one piece, but it isn't. You need a lot of components to make one grenade work. And Denmark had some parts, and we had some parts, and then we made it happen. Or Patriots, I'm very happy to hear about the Dutch contribution here. And we don't have Patriot, but we have put aside money to help finance. So together we can make a Patriot system work for Ukraine, and so on. So, but that said, I think the most important part of our joint efforts is that we actually stand together, building unity, preventing the adversary from dividing us. So working on cooperation, building partnerships, this builds trust. And with trust, we can be more efficient, more effective, and our contribution can reach further. So, and then we will also be successful.
Yeah, and hopefully at this kind of event, some of those lessons that you've learned on cooperation within that context of Ukraine can also be applied to more broadly. You know, this is, we're here representing the globe and not just Europe, of course. Let's open this discussion out. I'd love to ask members, delegates here, members of our audience, if you'd like to make a contribution to our discussion, please raise your hand and I'd be happy to give you the floor. I'm looking around. Yes, there's a gentleman there. You can turn on the mic on your desk and please feel free to introduce yourself first. I think it should turn red and then you should be able to be amplified.
Just want to say thank you so much to the EU for inviting us to this second we are currently chair until the end of July this year. And our President Hakainde, who is currently the chair, believes that instability anywhere is instability everywhere. Zambia currently is having its focus on Mozambique, and we've been in Mozambique as part of the SADC mission for 2 years. The situation in Mozambique is stable, and SADC had decided last year that we are going to withdraw this year before the 15th of July. Zambia has continued to play its role in Mozambique because Mozambique is our neighbor, and we have 8 other neighbors which are neighbors to Zambia, and we believe that Zambia has a role to play to keep the peace in the region. We also have our focus on Congo DRC, which just had its elections recently, and we are part of the semi-DRC team, which is trying to stabilize the situation in Congo DRC. Zambia has a long border with DRC, and we can't afford a situation where Congo is not stable because that affects our country. We also have, as chair of this Troika, SADC Troika, overseen elections in the region, a number of elections which took place in African countries, including elections being held in South Africa today. We are very certain that these elections will be peaceful and they will keep the region peaceful. We are also facing a very serious situation in the region, that is of climate change, with massive drought in the region, which has affected Zambia. And Zambia has lost almost a third, if not half, of its food crop this year. We believe as Zambia that food security is national security. And as a result, we are very, very keen that the president has announced that Zambia needs a lot of support to be able to feed its people and to make sure that there's food security in the region. We are also very, very aware that because of the climate change that has affected our energy security, we are doing everything, and we are looking forward to support to be able to make sure that Zambia has its energy security it needs. Zambia is aware of the human trafficking situation in the region, and we are working as part of SADC to make sure that this is really, really stopped. Talking about food security, we are aware, and we have been affected as Zambia and the region because of the high prices of maize, of fertilizer, because of the Russian war. And as Zambia, we are appealing that we be supported and the region be supported to be able to produce enough food to feed the region. Finally, we would like to thank the EU and all the members of the EU for continuing to support SADC in Mozambique. And we also appeal that we continue building that relationship with EU to build the capacity of Zambia National Defense Force in terms of training, in terms of capacity building, and in terms of modernizing our defense force. Once more, we thank you for allowing us to attend, and on behalf of the Minister and the Republic of Zambia, we say thank you so much, and we hope that we can join in building these partnerships with Africa, and in particular with Zambia, to keep the peace in the region and to keep the peace in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your intervention and for bringing to our attention, of course, that really crucial topic which we haven't touched on yet of the climate crisis and climate change and how that affects security. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? If you raise your hand. Yeah, there's a gentleman at the back there. I think there's a microphone coming toward you. Thank you for your patience. Technical difficulties, always something to contend with.
All right, thank you. Good morning to everyone. My name is Mutaru Mumuni Mukhtar. I work at the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism based in Accra, Ghana, a civil society organization. First of all, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm also happy that the Sahel and West Africa has featured in the agenda, and we are very, very happy for that. I want to state that, yes, at the moment, West Africa is in a very dire situation in terms of violent extremism, and the fatality numbers are rising, especially towards coastal states. And unfortunately, things like that seem to be buried or overshadowed by the outrage over issues like the Ukrainian war, the Gaza situation. And so it's important that we deliberately feature this on the agenda to ensure that we do not run the risk of a run over by extremists along coastal states. I want to say that we recognize the support of the EU, especially in the case of Ghana, where a lot of support in terms of military equipment has happened. But I want to make the point that we need to be able to balance the support in terms of kinetic approach with non-military support, because we saw that happen in the Sahel, and that is partly responsible for the failure in dealing with violent extremism in the Sahel. And so it's important that we expand the parameters of support to include civil society support, because they are on the ground in terms of addressing the vulnerabilities and the drivers of violent extremism, to ensure that we do not have a repeat of what happened in the Sahel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also, yeah, really important to hear the civil society view there. Yes, lady there. I believe there should be a microphone coming towards you. Keep your hand raised. Can we get a microphone to this lady? Thank you very much for your patience. Yeah, great. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Ibtisam Al-Kitbi. I am a head of think tank Emirates Policy Center in Abu Dhabi. My question, we are talking about partnership and security and defense. But does this apply when the interest of European or others in our region? I take an issue, like Iran intervention in the region. We had a lot of trouble with Iran before normalization, and we seek your partnership, we seek your understanding. But we didn't get that. Only when your interests conflict with the Iranian, when their drones reach your territories, you change your position. So what about that partnership we seek when there is no interest of you in that conflict? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister Olonga, I want to come to you because, well, first of all, I think we've heard quite a lot of thanks towards the European Union. You're the only representative of an EU country here. I thought you might also want to extend some thanks in the other direction to partners that are gathered here. And then perhaps to respond to this criticism there, you know, that perhaps the EU is a fair weather partner. That's certainly what I was hearing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, first of all, it's good that we can have this debate and this dialogue here in this room. But I think that the High Rep rightly pointed out that is why we feel it's important also not only to go to other meetings, but to invite everybody to come here to Brussels to have that dialogue. And let me respond a little bit also to the two previous speakers, because I think it shows, I'm the Minister for Defence, that we are always looking for ways to actually engage. And it's not always easy, but we have to learn from previous experiences, for instance, in the Sahel country and in Mali, where my country has been active. So what happened? What was wrong in our approach? Were the things that we could have done differently? And what happened? Why did certain countries make certain choices? We have to understand that as well. Why do countries change their alliances? From alliances from the past to alliances that they believe are better for them now. And why do we believe, as European countries and as European Union, that we have much to offer? And then if I look at defence and the armed forces, we try to be present, sometimes very limited presence, by doing very specific trainings, for instance, with special forces, or there are other capabilities and possibilities. So to be present, to know each other, to invite people from certain African countries to join us in our trainings in Europe or in military academies. I think that is a very efficient way to know each other, so that you also will be able to acknowledge threats to stability before they happen. I think that is vital in our partnership and the partnership that we seek with your countries. And responding to the last question from, we have met before, by the way, I remember very well, because your explanation or analysis of the situation in the Middle East, I think, was very much to the point. And I understand your question. And I think that we have been in the dialogue with many countries in the Middle East, trying to have a balanced approach. With Iran, we had in the past, of course, an approach that could perhaps have worked but did not work out for several reasons. And what is the right balance? That's the most difficult question, I think, of all when you deal with geopolitics. You don't want to escalate, but you don't want to underestimate the threat that the country poses. And I think you're very right to pointing out that when our interests are directly affected, countries are more eager to step in than before. But I think it would be much better to have these partnerships so that you are there before the escalation actually happens. And we have to learn from that.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just call briefly on a representative of Oman. I believe you would like to say a few words. And could you put your hand up and we'll get a microphone to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Great. Okay.
Thank you very much for the invitation. And we are very glad, really, to be here to participate in this very important forum. I would like to make a comment. Today's volatile world has not changed from yesterday. But the location of the volatility has shifted drastically into both geopolitically and competitors. Globalization, not in the recent past, very recently, globalization was driven by the West. When their interest is harmed with the rise of other countries, globalization is shifting to a creation of economic bloc. The competition between East and West is heating up as well. Growing economy and political reach has impelled many countries to gain more influence, and the West has characterized this as a battleground between autocracy and democracy. Many countries' political interests do not map up onto the autocracy versus democracy, framing neither party state nor liberal democracy. Indeed, many countries' ties with their both many countries believe they can successfully balance ties with both sides as they forge their own form of domestic politics, which can match into their interest. Today, we are not living in a world you are either with me or against me, because the world has gone into a very smaller global village, and all our interests are so much interconnected as well. Economics are the biggest arena in which states could reject pressure to choose side. In today's world, it is important to approach diversified set of politics and economic relationship. Some of the respective members also discussed and mentioned about partnership. Let me just highlight one thing in here. Partnership is a great responsibility. Telling your partners that you loved them last year, but they did not make it the grade for this year program is no way building confidence into telling them that you have their interest in heart. This is really the case if we look at the situation in Gaza today. After 75 years and more than 30 years of Oslo, and there are still countries thinking this is not an opportunity to have a two-state solution, whereby this is a golden opportunity, is got to be made, and the war has got to be stopped. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And of course, the situation in Gaza, I think, was put front and centre by the High Representative in his speech. It's very much on the mind of, I know, EU ministers have been meeting here in Brussels. Would you like to respond, High Representative? Can we get a microphone to... Yeah.
There's not a flying micro? No?
I think if you sit down, you should be closer to that microphone on your desk.
I will
Go ahead.
sit
Thank you.
No, it's not exactly to respond, but in order to animate the debate and exchange, I want to thank to all of you for your participation. And in particular, on the last intervention, I have to say, yes, the dividing line in the world is not only on democracies versus autocracies. This is a way of looking at that. It is not the only way, and for sure it's not a comprehensive approach. And some of the most difficult issues today, for example, what's happening in Gaza, you cannot say that in the one side there are democracies and on the other side are the autocracies. It will be a completely distorted approach. At the European Union, we are all democracies, and I can tell you that inside the European Union there is a big divide with respect to what's happening in Gaza. And with respect to what's happening in Ukraine also, there is a confrontation between democracies and autocracies. In some cases, yes, in others, this is not exactly the dividing line. And you are right, there are many countries around the world who are hedging In some cases, they are with, let's say, the West.